Voice check, voice check. Well, hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting round here at Classic Vintage Races. My name's Pirate Lazenby and I'll be doing the commentary for today's stream, and we are today taking a trip to Western Germany where we'll be going to the Eifel-Rennen, which is a gravel circuit, and there's been a few changes to the cars and so on since our last round, which I'll cover very shortly, but we only have a minute or so before the race starts, so what I'm going to do is bring up the current standings for the championship thus far. So after 4 rounds we have the following drivers, all 28 participants shown on the screen currently, and in game at the moment we're observing Haley Smith, who's currently running in 6th place in the overall standings, currently in the Delage. And as we go into the race in about 30 seconds time, we will be taking a look at the following starting order, with Alex Henry, Marcus Peltonen and Teofil taking up the first 3 spots of the racing today. Look at that circuit, absolutely cracking circuit through the woods today, and in true 1923 style, 1920s style, the circuit is lined with a barbed wire fence and a solid wooden railing to prevent the drivers from heading off into the very solid looking trees. So hopefully no accidents befalling the drivers today, but as you know, anything is possible in a race such as today's. It'll be very interesting watching the drivers navigate the twisty sections of the track. And in a few moments we'll be getting underway with our first race here today. Just trying to wangle my way into the briefing document. So the weather forecast. The weather forecast is going to be partly cloudy as expected, and rain should not bother us today, but anything can happen in the mountains as it's June and the rain season is in the area. The temperature is pretty low and expected to not be above 20 degrees or just below 20 degrees Celsius. Although the race start is in the early morning local time, so it can be a bit breezy, with the wind around 4 meters per second from the west. The race start will be a traditional standing start this time, unlike the rolling starts we've seen before. And remember to start the engine before and don't stall. So it could be some dramatic events happening off the line with the standing start. And as you can see, it's going to be pretty tightly packed in there on the starting grid, so hopefully no incidents early on in the race. Remember, the cars have different brakes, tyres are cold, and so the brakes and the cobblestones are going to be slippery. Just reading the briefing here that Garamond has sent out to the drivers. You will gain few possibly lost positions pretty fast if you have the pace, but after all, managing the car in good shape will be key to high positions. If you can't do that with speed alone, don't wreck in a rush at the beginning. So yeah, wise words from Garamond there. It's most important to finish the race is wise words, and we've seen a few incidents in the last few rounds, particularly with a couple of drivers who have, I think it was Kai Severston, who was doing absolutely amazingly in the entirety of the last race until the very, very last couple of minutes, and then had a wipeout, which unfortunately led to them not finishing the race. I think they went somersaulting over a barrier, which is very, very unfortunate for them. So in a few moments we'll be getting underway with the standing start. Looks like we only have about 11 drivers joining us today. Hopefully we'll have a few more jumping in. I should do my very best to remember to enable the Discord audio for the interviews at the end, so apologies last round where the interviews were very much one-sided, with you only hearing I think me, but not the interviewee, which is arguably the most important side of the conversation to be hearing. So just going back to those briefing words from Garamond, I think the idea of finishing the race is definitely the most important thing. For those of you who aren't aware, classic vintage races run kind of almost like a championship management system where you have a budget as a driver, and you need to buy and sell your cars, etc., and your damage will definitely impact the resale value of your car. So not finishing a race and having damage to repair, etc., can be a very quick way of getting yourself bankrupted. Now thankfully a few drivers have been able to kind of keep in the runnings, with a little bit of kind of financial wizardry. And it's good to see Kai Severstone back here again today. But yeah, finishing the race is definitely the best way of ensuring your future success in the rounds to come, and there are many rounds to come. But a very big shout out to Garamond, or V Tolonen, as you might know them as their in-game name, for organising the championship and putting all the hard work into getting this all pulled together. It's not an easy thing to organise a championship, and I'm sure everyone on the track appreciates the effort that goes into keeping everything organised and so on. Hey Max, good to see you in chat there. Eifel-Rennen is an awesome track, incredible to see these cars in a modern game, things that only AC provides us. It's very true actually. I really hope that AC Evo carries on that modding potential into that game, because it'd be a real shame if it didn't have the same capabilities or flexibility that AC provides currently. Very nice looking cars on the grid today. That's the new Delage. Be getting underway very shortly. So let's take a look at who's driving what today. We've got Marcus Peltonen in the 1925 Delage 2LCV. Oh, I think we're just about to get underway here. Ah, there we go, there's our full grid, 22 drivers. Quite spaced out actually in the standings. Let's just bring up the standings again one last time. Doesn't seem to be the current, or well, actually the tower on the left hand side always gets itself in a bit of a pickle during the beginning. There we go. Starting grid. Ah, so yes, there we go. Henry is out first, and then we've got Marcus Peltonen. I was actually showing the championship standings there by accident, so yeah, here we go, starting grid. And then, yeah, Lubomirski, and then Haley Smith, Jay Lemur, and so on. Looks like Henry's got a little bit of a... Actually, they've spaced out the cars quite nicely, actually. This should mean that there's limited risk of impact at the beginning. And there's a fantastic shot of the full grid. So best of luck to our drivers out there today. 20 laps of the Eifel-Rennen to come. As the race progresses, I will run you through a little bit of information about the cars and some of the drivers, and a bit of information about what's happened since the last round. There's been a bit of a damage update that I mentioned briefly there about the cost of impacts and so on, and finishing the race, so I'll take you through those. There's quite a few accidents to report on from the last round. Should be underway in about 15 seconds. JC Lemur, who's currently running in 5th place, was in debt, so had to sell his car after the last round. And he's been declared bankrupt, so he's had to start from 0 points again. So he'll be hoping for big points today. But anyway, lights are up, engines are revving. Oh, looks a bit of a jump start there. And away we go. Marcus Pelton getting off to a flying start there. Definitely out accelerating Henry there. Haley Smith coming up in the background there, followed by Kusler and Jaylee Moore. But Marcus Pelton absolutely storming out the gate. T. Kusler also coming up very quickly. I think that's the another Delage, 1925 Delage. And as they come through the cobblestones, which were mentioned to be very slippery under the current conditions with cold tyres, you can see the drivers taking a little bit easy as they descend down what is a very steep hill through the first couple of corners, mounting the curb there. Hopefully that hasn't done any damage earlier on. But as the cars work their way down, you can see quite a few drivers just grappling with the conditions at the moment as they get their car and tyres up to temperature. Looks like P. Rosen and Alazaro were going a little bit wheel to wheel there as Uatilla comes up as well, grabs another position from Alazaro as they go side by side. Very nice livery on Alazaro's car there. And you can see actually the cars are taking up about, or 2 cars takes up about the whole width of the track, so quite tight conditions here, especially given the prospect of running off and hitting one of the barriers, which would be devastatingly bad damage to have early on in a race like this. Marcus Pelton out to a flying start already, gaining 5 seconds of clear time ahead of Jay Lemur as they complete their first lap. Jay Lemur also a bit of free air, 2.7 seconds ahead of Drick. And there's the number 66 car driven by Drick. Nurmi, another fast driver who's done very well in the previous rounds, is now catching up a little bit on Haley Smith. Closing into under a second and then takes the inside line there as they overtake Haley Smith. I think Haley is driving the 1923 Delage, whereas Nurmi's in the 1925 version. You can see the improvements in those last 2 years of car development as Nurmi just blasts on through. Kayla Fredge and Uatilla now getting a little bit close together. Uatilla grappling with the rear end of the car there, getting a little bit lower grip as the gravel here seems to have an impact on the traction, as one would expect. But Kayla Fredge holding on here, but Nurmi coming out on the outside takes a wide berth to make sure there's a safe pass there, but shoots on through to grab 7th position here. But you can see now a bit of a group formed by Lippi, P. Rosen, Aitanen and Tolonen as they start to close into a tight formation here on the opening lap. Down another hill. Look at the changing gradient here, it's absolutely incredible. Cars sliding as they grapple with their machines. And here we've got Lippi, Haitanen and Tolonen and Henry all in a bit of a squadron now. Down another hill to a sweeping right-hander. Morning sun bathing the track. Lippy's probably a little bit concerned about the picture in the rear view, with Tolnin very close indeed now, 0.3 of a second. There was Haley Smith just blasting through, I think. Let's take a look up here in third place as Nurmi and Drick are starting to tighten up in formation. Jay Lemur just getting overtaken there by Nurmi, as Nurmi's 1925 Delage powers him to an early second position. And T. Kusler also taking a position there from Jay Lemur as they get up to third place as well. Also driving the 1925 Delage. So it looks like Marcus Peltonen is about 2/3 of the way around the track at the moment. You can see the cars coming through one of the grandstands, campsite in the background. Kayla Fredge, there we go, just completed the first lap, sorry. So Kayla Fredge just losing out a position there to Tolnin. And if we go back to P13, where we have El Ronald, we've got Kai Severston and Henry jostling for positions. You can see Kai, though, almost losing the rear end of the car there. Thankfully managing to maintain control, but as they come into the town, have to see whether Kai is okay. Car seems to be low on traction as they come over the cobblestones. Drivers seem to be taking it quite easy there. Ooh, and there we go. The number 35, which is El Ronald, has turned around in what is quite an awkward position. Losing out quite a lot of positions now and trying to get off the track to get back to some semblance of safety. They're probably going to have to attempt to turn around here. Let's go to the onboard view from Trompke's position, as they will undoubtedly be coming through to the position where the number 35 car is turned around. You can see how they're taking it very easy on their way down the hill here, as the cars will suffer from low traction on these corners. And there we have it. So let's go back to T. Kusler now. Back in fourth place is Uatilla. Bears down in the number 313. But at the moment, Kusler managing to maintain a 0.5 of a second advantage as they start to climb up the hill. But Kusler is starting to ease in a little bit closer, or further away, as Uatilla holds on in the background as much as possible. But they're both driving the same car, so pretty much going to be down to driver skill and setup. There we go. Kusler overtaking Jay Lemur, as does Uatilla. Jay Lemur down to 5th place now. So lap time of 6 minutes. Should give us approximately a 2-hour race. See the cars sliding through the corners. Probably the best way to get the rotation required. Uatilla bearing down on T. Kusler now. Definitely wanting a spot on that podium. Goes side by side, takes the inside line, managing to maintain enough space to avoid contact. But Kusler isn't giving up just yet, and Uatilla is 0.4, 0.5 of a second back behind again as they come down the hill. You can see Heitinen as well in the background there, currently running in P5 in the number 10 car. Starting to close in on this group, and as they battle, Uatilla and Kusler will make it easier for Heitinen to close in this gap. Again, Uatilla looking for an angle. Heitinen closing into 0.2 of a second as well. Will be happy to take advantage of any mistake that either driver in front will afford them. Heitinen dropping back a little bit now as Uatilla holds his position. 0.3 of a second behind Kusler. Kusler managing to maintain this third position, or third spot for the time being. Let's hope Uatilla doesn't over egg the pudding, as it were. He tries to push for advantage. Car's getting slowed down for the left-hander. Back on the power as I climb the hill. Lovely shot there of the cars working their way through the woodland here. Gaining speed. Uatilla now side by side with Kusler, and Heitinen only 0.2 of a second behind. Almost going to go 3 wide here. That's going to be a bit of a scary situation. You can see, actually interesting, Heitinen's got a very different level of camber applied to his car. Uatilla and Kusler seem to have much more vertical wheels, whereas Heitinen's got kind of angled inwards. But Heitinen's managed to get through, as has Uatilla, and now it's Kusler who's running in 5th. Let's see if Kusler can bring anything back to the table here as they start to cross over the start-finish line and begin their third lap here. You can see that now Uatilla is through. They've opened up quite a substantial gap of 1.3 seconds to Heitinen already, and Heitinen's already 1.2 seconds ahead of Kusler, so Kusler may be in jeopardy here. Let's see if they can descend the downhill section without overcooking it. You can see just how much they have to slow the cars down for these corners, down to 40 kilometers an hour there in the town section on the cobblestones. So, Korkajowski in 17th place has just lost the position there to El Renard, who is starting to make a bit of a climb back up the rankings here following their bit of a disaster as they over-rotated in the downhill section. And what is Korkajowski driving? That's a lovely little car he's in there. Let's just take a quick look at the information here. So Korkajowski's in a Bugatti T35, so that's a new Bugatti from the 1925 lineup. Here comes Henry down the town section, followed by Kai Severston. We've also got Alazaro, I think, got a bit turned around there, and that allowed Häkkinen to get through into 12th place. However, Kai is still on the tail of Henry here. Here is Lippi in P11, being assaulted slowly and surely by Häkkinen. Although Häkkinen is losing out in straight line speed here as they climb the hill. See Lippi losing the back end there, a little bit of the 1925 Delage, but managing to keep things under control. Certainly not a part of the track where you want to make contact with the surroundings, given your options are a barbed wire fence. You can see actually Lippi struggling a little bit with the car here, and Pekkanen happy to take advantage of those mistakes to allow them to close in a little bit here. Climbing up the hill. Probably going to be quite demanding on the traction from the vehicle. And Pekkanen closing in. Take a look here, Kai Severston jostling for positions with Pereira and Lazaro. And it's Pereira who is holding on to Lazaro. Although that gap has increased to 0.6, closed down to 0.4 though. Might be an opportunity here. It all comes down to uphill speed, I think, and acceleration. Some of the cars being more favourable to that than others. There's Lazaro. Kai Severston overtaking Lazaro as well. Oh, Lazaro seems to be in trouble. That might be engine damage or some kind of overheating issue. They've pulled over to the side of the track to rest up for a second. Let's see if they can get underway again. Let's go back though to third place, where the battle between Uotila and Heitinen continues. Heitinen only 0.3 of a second behind, closing slowly but surely on Uotila's position. In the background you can see Kustler, who was part of the battle earlier on in lap 2, but has now fallen 14 seconds behind. And now it's down to Heitinen and Uotila to see who can best the other. It looks like Heitinen is throwing everything they've got here as they come down at 180 kilometers an hour. To the start-finish line, and it's Heitinen holding steady about 0.2 of a second behind, dropping back a little bit here. Seems to be a slight difference in setup to the car potentially, or gearing. Uotila sliding it through the first corner there, as does Heitinen. But yeah, seems to be that Uotila gets a bit of a straight line speed advantage there, and maybe that's where Heitinen is best positioned, is within the corners, but we'll see coming through the town now. Tyres should be a little bit more warm by this point, but it's still quite chilly. 10 degrees track temperature and 10 degrees Celsius ambient temperature. These tyres do take a bit of time to warm up as well. So you can see the drivers very carefully navigating the downhill cobblestone section, which will undoubtedly claim at least one car in this race. One car in addition to El Renard in the 35, who has already got turned around, although didn't actually thankfully get any damage by the looks of it. Haley Smith now, 10th place, being closed in on by Kay Lafredge. And Lafredge seems to be getting through on the inside there. Haley losing out a little bit on straight line speed. But Haley using the corners to their advantage, as they put Lafredge back to 0.2 behind. Into the cobblestone downhill section now. And acceleration being very important here, but you can see even at those low speeds the ability for the rear end of the car to slide round is certainly a risk that one needs to be aware of. So, number 35, El Renard and Henry going toe to toe. Looks like Henry is still driving the Sunbeam Grand from the 1924 lineup. Whereas El Renard is currently in the 1925 Alfa Romeo P2, which is certainly putting them in good stead. I think it's quite a dramatic increase in performance every year that the cars go forward. P. Rosen in P21, followed by F. McGears. F. McGears still in the Bentley, or sorry, the Bugatti. 1923, and you can see a lot of the drivers who are in the 1923s. You've got the Voisin C6 Laboratoire with Mick Trumpke driving that in P20. They'll be struggling a little bit for speed and competitiveness today. And it's no surprise that Marcus Peltonen, Nurmi and Uotila and Heitinen and Kusler. We've also got Tolonen and Jesse Limor, J. Limor, all in the 1924-25 cars, as is Drick, Lippi. There's actually Haley Smith in the 1923 Delage 2LCV, which is doing the best out of all of the 1923 cars. So it looks like we have a little bit of a gap forming between some of the drivers, so now's probably a good time to take you through a little bit of the results from the previous round. As I mentioned earlier on the stream, there is quite a lot of damage to report from the previous round, so I'll run through that quickly now, but let's just quickly take a quick look at Uotila and Heitinen, because the moment I start talking statistics, I'm sure these two are going to start putting on a bit of a show for us. So I'm just going to take a quick look here to see if they're about to get back into a battle. Looks like Heitinen is closing in on Uotila. Likes to be putting the pressure on Uotila as they continue round the Fieldberg ring here. And Heitinen's got a 0.3 second gap to Uotila and a bit of slipstream to play with. So should be able to put some pressure on now. Maybe force a mistake, or at the very least slipstream their way past. As I mentioned before, I think Uotila has a setup which is more favourable in the straight line speed. We saw that coming up to the start-finish line previously, where Uotila was able to open up a pretty substantial gap, and as they come up to the grid now, again, we'll see whether that happens once more. Looks like this time Heitinen isn't dropping behind, so maybe it was just a question of putting your foot to the floor, and you can see Uotila sliding off the track there a little bit. Heitinen taking a slightly more conservative line as they start to climb the hill here. Heitinen is hanging on, and now they're back into the twisty and slippery downhill cobblestone section in the town. Of course, this being the 1925 Eifel-Rennen at Niedigen. This is the town of Niedigen. And there it is. Uotila now 0.7 of a second behind. So you can see that final stage running up to the start-finish line. Heitinen is able to close in generally, but then Uotila manages to use the first few corners of the track to open up this gap. And the two will be going around once more. Like Kusler there. So, I'll now return to explaining the damage from the previous round. So, the following drivers didn't get finishing prizes at Sitges. That includes J.C. Lemur, Johnny Lindholm, Zan Darling, Paul van Rosen, Nurmi. We've also got Marco Cossi, Mollett, Anssi Heitinen, Mosse Pereira, Kent Lefrege, Kari Uotila, Alfontaine, Marcus Peltonen and Lippi. JC Namur, had a 15,000 credits fee for a crash at 150 kilometers an hour. I can only imagine what a 150 kilometer an hour crash in one of these vehicles would be like. Here comes Heitinen again, by the way, closing in on Uatilla, but Uatilla managing to hold their own once again as they climb the hill. Johnny Lindholm received a 15,000 credit fine as well for a repair bill for a 150 km an hour crash. Zan Darling had a 20,000 credit bill for a crash over 100 kilometers time and 2 over 50. Paul van Rosen with 15,000 credits of repairs for a crash over 100 kilometers an hour and 1 over 50. Nurmi had a 10,000 credits fee for a singular 100 km an hour crash, as did Marco Cossi and Marloet. Heitinen had 10,000 credits repair bill for 2 50 km an hour crashes. Mosse Pereira and Kayla Fredge also had 5,000 credits each for a singular 50 km an hour, as did Kari Uatilla, Al Fontaine, Marcus Peltonen and Lippi. So that covers all of the damage from the previous round. So, Niedergön is a dirt track that requires drivers to use heavy studs in their tyres, and that's just to maintain grip, I suppose. That must make it very tricky on the cobblestones, however. The tyre compound is pretty durable, but dirt eats the tyre a lot, so it's quite probable that drivers don't need to change tyres during the race, but in that case they will be pretty worn out by the end. So for the 1925 season, Delage got 70 horsepower more, and it's by far the fastest car on the track today, overtaking what used to be the Fiats in terms of the fastest car on the track. So those driving this car are clearly driving a winning prospect, but the 25 Alfa Romeo P2 and maybe the 24 Delage might give it a run for its money. Other cars require unfortunate things to happen for Delages to get high positions, so those driving other vehicles may struggle for pace here today. The track's profile itself makes it challenging for cooling of the cars, and it's pretty likely that most drivers are required to cool down their engines during the race, and that can lead to surprising differences. It's possible though that short shift and lift a little bit could help cool the engines down, so we might see some drivers employing that. But the lap times will definitely suffer, and for the likes of Heitinen and Uatilla, they will be very much overheating their engines at the moment. We'll have to see how they get on. So the Bugattis are probably going to make it without pit stops if they're able to spare the tyres enough, as they don't have superchargers, so they're more fuel efficient. And we've already covered the weather. We might see some rain though. I can only imagine what those cobblestones are going to be like on studded tyres in the rain. We've got 7 of the 25 Delages on the track. Marcus Peltonen has a clear advantage as he'll be starting second, and he's very quick. Uatilla and Nurmi are also ones to watch. Vesa Tolonen and Antti Heitinen are also ones to keep an eye on, although they have a long way to climb from the back, although you can see that Heitinen has done that, and he's also got past Uatilla now. And we've actually got a bit of a back marker, I think, here in the midst, which is slowing Uatilla down a little bit. Oh, they look like they've got some pretty big damage, actually, in the number 35 car. Let's see if they can get through. Looks like Hayes Smith in a bit of a pickle here. Wheel spinning up the hill, having lost the position to Caleb Fredge there. And not a great place to be wheel spinning, because that's uphill, and they're going to certainly lose a bit of speed on that lap. You can see they're 4 seconds down on their lap time on the basis of that. incident alone. Now Heintinen is through. You can see that actually they've managed to open up quite a big gap to Uatilla here, and Uatilla's struggling a little bit with the traffic, but it's now broken through. One more car to go. I think that might be Heintinen. Yeah, it is. So Heintinen is still the car just ahead of Uatilla. It's 5.7 seconds of gap though. And given how close these guys are racing, that might be a pretty large gap to close. So let's take a look at number 8 here, which is Drick. 2.6 seconds behind Jay Lamour in the number 66. Driving the 1924 Delage. Track temperature's starting to warm up a little bit there with a 12 degrees Celsius. That's 2 degrees up from what it was before, as the morning sun is warming the ambient temperature and the track here. 11 degrees ambient, so it's actually warming the track up slightly quicker than it is the surrounding ambient air. Bit of wheel spin there. Take a look at Darling in P16, currently 50 seconds behind Henry in the Fiat. Up on the lap time currently as they come down the cobblestones. Taking great care. So, Darling driving the 1924 Fiat 805 405. Lazaro's in the pits though, so this is our first pit, I believe. And off they go again. That might have been for damage repairs or simply cooling the engine. Maybe a change of tyres, I'm not sure. Behind them you can see P. Rosen in the number 6. Driving the 1925 Alfa Romeo P2. And they are carrying a bit more speed up this hill than Lazaro is, so these... Well, Lazaro losing out one position there as Paul van Rosen takes a extra spot there, up to P18. M. Trompke in one of the Vossans. Definitely struggling for pace in this particular car. Being followed by one of the fast drivers. That might be Peltonen. Yes, it is. Korkowski in the number 28, that's the new Bugatti. So Tolonen's up to 5th place at the moment, but has a 46 seconds gap to Uatilla. And only a 2.4 second gap to Kusler, so Kusler may be yet able to put some pressure on Tolonen. Coming up to the Bosch sign. And then down the hill to the start-finish line for Tolnen. 7 laps now. Track still at 95% grip. So a little bit of a way to go before that improves. But you can see the track temperature now 15 degrees Celsius. So definitely starting to warm up. That will hopefully help with traction in the more slippery parts of the track. Here we have Darling and Kai Severston going toe to toe. Severston seemingly trying to go around the outside, switches back to the inside line however. See the blind nature of some of these corners. Bit of a sense of the speed that these guys are experiencing. Coming down to the right-hander now. Morning sun still bathing the track. 16 degrees track temperature. So really starting to pick up some momentum now with the warming. Kai dancing around a slight improvement on the lap time there. Pretty much keeping even with their 6:12, 2:27, which is their best and last lap. Down to 50 kph as they start to climb the hill. And it's Darling who seems to be getting slightly left behind by Kai Severston's acceleration there up the hill. Let's see if Darling can close that gap in the downhill sections. Seems to be losing out again. It's definitely Kai Severston with the acceleration. Breaking away from Darling now. And up to the start and finish line we go for Kai Severston. 5 seconds ahead of Darling now. Darling definitely losing out there in that straight line speed department. Ooh, actually it's Darling into the pits. That might be why they were taking it a little bit easy. And they're in the pits for what may be some time. Give the engine a chance to cool down, however. Let's go back to Tolnen here, who is currently running in P5. Kusler merely 2.8 seconds behind. Both driving the same car as well. And up the hill they go. You can see the cars leaving a good amount of wheel spin marks in the circuit surface there. So, best laps. Let's take a quick look at who's where in the overall situation. So we have a 5:35.676 for Heitinen. And it doesn't look like anyone's bested that time just yet. We've got a few 36s, so Marcus Peltonen, Nurmi, Uotila, all in the 36s. Oh, here we go. M. Pereira having just overtaken Haley Smith. Ah, but look, Heitinen's in the pits. Bit of a traffic jam with one of the Bugattis. So Heitinen's come in for a pit stop. That means that Uotila is now well away, as is Vitolinen and Kusela. We'll have to see if that changes up the running order later on when the other drivers come back in for their respective pit stops. At the moment, the drivers with pit stops are Kai Stevenson, Paul van Rosen, Zam Darling, R. Lazaro, Gears, and now Heitinen. Here's Marcus Pelton out in front, overtaking in the number 6 car, which is Paul van Rosen. Kayla Fredge going toe-to-toe with the number 35, driven by El Renard, and looks like El Renard has managed to best Kayla Fredge up the hill there with acceleration. Will they be able to hold on to that position? There's Kayla Fredge coming up to the start-finish line now. Looks like one of our drivers is just coming back out again. I think that might be Lazaro. He will be shortly overtaken, I think, as they won't have the momentum yet. Although actually coming into the slow section, it might be that they get out of the way and let Kayla Fredge through. Doesn't seem to have done so actually at the moment. And Lafredge will have to work a little bit harder to get past Lazaro. So our top 3 drivers, we've got Uotila 27 seconds behind Nurmi at the moment. Nurmi's a good 11 to 12 seconds behind Marcus Peltonen. Mark is definitely controlling the race at the moment, but hasn't been into the pits yet. Heitinen down in 9th place, seems to be back underway, and they may be able to grab a few positions once the other drivers who are ahead of them have come in for their respective pit stops. So Heitinen is the only driver in the top 10 to have actually pitted yet. Haley Smith and Pereira going toe-to-toe. Looks like Haley is just about out-accelerating Pereira, as they are side by side on the run down to the next braking zone. Ultimately though, it looks like Herrera has broken away from Haley Smith without too much trouble. Marcus Peltonen just on their 9th lap at the moment, having completed the previous 8 in first position. So Paul van Rosen's in the pits, as is Lou Bromiski. Although Lou Bromiski's been in there for some time, so I don't know if they've retired. Nope, they are just about to get underway. I spoke a little bit too soon there. Up here in P4 though, V Tolnin is still being pursued by T Kusler. And the gap remains at 2.6 to 2.8 seconds. It's quite a consistent battle they're having, just separated by about 3 seconds. Tolnin about 5 seconds down on their best there. That might be a sign of grip starting to fall away. A little bit of a squirrely first corner there. Going down the downhill section. Ooh, looks like we've got a car off the side of the track there. Is that... It's one of the red cars. Oh, it's Lou Bromiski. Just came out of the pits a few moments ago and has now seemingly retired to the side of the track. They've reversed into this location, so I'm assuming they've gone out of the way on purpose. And let's see if they can get back into the swing of things at any point in this race. Here comes... Ooh. Just missed a little bit of action there between Paul van Rosen and Darling. Rosen overtaking there and seemingly breaking away quite quickly as the gap opens considerably to 2 seconds. But it's Lippi and Heitinen in P7 and 8 respectively, where I think we're going to see our next battle unfold. Heitinen right on top of Lippi now, seemingly taking the initiative to go around the inside, and Heitinen is through. Now Heitinen can continue their attack on the next position, which is going to be number 6, Jay Lamour. There's the Vorsan, which I believe is driven by Trumpke, being overtaken there. I've always wondered what the little spinning thing on the front of this car does. I assume it's some kind of wind-powered device for some other reason. Henry coming down the cobblestones now, running in P13, is actually pursued by Haley Smith and Drick, who are about 2.5 seconds apart apiece. And hopefully these guys get into a bit of a three-way battle for us to enjoy. Although I imagine Henry is very happy at the moment not being in a three-way battle, as they can control the pace here from P13. Haley Smith, though, starting to close in a little bit, but again losing out on the hill as Drick manages to close in a little bit with superior acceleration up the hill, and Drick's now less than a second behind Haley Smith. Climbing up the hill, seems like Drick does have the advantage here with superior power. And Drick is through. Haley Smith down to P15 now. Bit of wheel spin there from Haley Smith as they climb the hill. That seems to be a popular spot for wheel spin. You can see the scars on the track surface. So as we come to the end of the ninth lap, or lap 10 I should say, interesting to see if Marcus Pelton will be heading to the pits anytime soon. Drick now putting some pressure on Henry as the number 66 car in P14 closes in on Henry in P13. There's the barbed wire fence. Reassuring, I'm sure. There's Haley Smith coming through, sliding away. Now Drick's only 0.3 of a second behind. Continuing through the downhill. Ooh, Haley very close to hitting that wall. That low fence would have been absolutely disastrous if they'd hit down. Drick now with the overtake on Henry. Henry's not giving up just yet, but I think Drick's got the advantage here. Henry's got the inside line though. Henry giving it all the beans, but still 0.3 of a second behind. And Drick is now up to P13. Although Henry is starting to come back with a vengeance and is now side by side. Bit of a drag race here, and it's Henry coming out on top as they head around the next corner. Let's see if Drick's got anything up their sleeve to recover that position. Oh, there's Kayla Fredge losing out 2 positions there. That's going to be another position for Hayley Smith as well, as the Fredge drops down to P15. Don't know if they've had damage or just cooling the car down, but the pit stops are just right there. Drick overtakes Pereira in the pits as well. Henry's up to P11 now, as Pereira is pitting. Will Lafredge be able to get to the pit stop? Ooh, actually no, what's happened here? They've got a rear right puncture. And it looks like they've had a bit of a tank slapper. Their tyre's been repaired. And they're underway. Will they be coming into the pits? Ooh, gosh, that was close. That looked like Peltonen, who would have been... Oh, sorry, it was pretty Nurmi. But is Lafredge going to the pits? No, they're not. Back to Drick versus Henry, and Henry still managing to maintain the lead here in P11. But Drick is 0.4 of a second behind, and we've seen this before, that they are able to get past. Just depends which part of the track they're on. Drick still managing to maintain 0.3, 0.4 of a second gap to Henry here. Henry now in P11 as Drick's managed to get through. And Drick is up to P11 with a nice gap of 1.56 seconds to Henry. So Marcus Peltonen, 10.4 laps. Hasn't come in for a pit stop just yet. Darling's in for the pits. And Lubomirski is retired to the pits by the looks of it now. Unfortunately, I missed it off camera when it happened, but Kusler is past Tolnen now, and the gap that was 2.6 seconds with Kusler behind is now 2 seconds with Kusler ahead. So Tolnen, no doubt, hunting Kusler down, closing actually quite quickly now, 1.4 seconds. We've also got number 16 or P16 down here, Pereira and Rosen, and Rosen's closing quickly, carrying a bit more momentum up the hill by the looks of it. And it's Pereira back down to P17 as Rosen cuts on through. Kusler, P4, 1.5 seconds ahead of Tolnen. Let's see if Kusler can maintain position here as Tolnin keeps on the pursuit. So Heitinen's improved with a 5:34.8, which puts them very much in a commanding position when it comes to best lap time. Peltonen, Nurmi and Uotila are all on 5:36s still. But no one has quite managed to get as close as Heitinen has. Tolnin still 2 seconds behind Kusler at the moment. We've also had the number 35, El Renard, in the pits. And they will be shortly down to P12 as Henry shoots on past. Haley Smith will be next up, who will be moving up to P12. And then I think Lafrege is quite some distance behind, so Renard may be okay from that point of view. Let's take a look at P7 here. Jay Lamour getting overtaken by Lippi as Lippi breaks on through to take P7, and Lippi is still 30 seconds behind Heitinen. Let's go to our race leader here, Marcus Peltonen. I'm sure the question on everyone's mind at the moment is, when will Peltonen come in for the pit stop? They're still maintaining pace with their best lap, so I assume they're going to be out for a bit longer, given there doesn't seem to be much degradation. Kayla Fredge into the pits as well, though. Let's see if Marcus is coming in this lap. I suspect they won't be, but they are actually almost a second off their pace now. They will potentially be drinking fuel quite quickly. But lap 12 and Peltonen is still leading the race with quite a commanding position. 11 seconds ahead of Nurmi. Tolnin having just overtaken Kusler. Seemingly with a burst of speed. Let's see if Kusler has got anything in the tank to recover. Same car, of course. We've got a car on the side of the road there. Looked like it was, yeah, Paul van Rosen. Potentially cooling the engine down. Hopefully nothing more significant than that. But here's Tolnen versus Kusler again. Kusler 1 second behind at the moment. Looks like Kusler took a little bit of a wide line there, almost making contact with the fence. And it's Tolnen who's 1.5 seconds ahead now. Caleb Fredge wheel spinning like crazy up the hill. And there's one of the Bugattis, that's F. Megius. Might present a little bit of traffic for Tolnen, which may allow Kusler to take the opportunity to close that gap. Ooh, Tolnen sliding the rear end of the car, but managing to keep things under control. Tolnen takes the inside line. Oh, Tolnen seems to be okay there, but Kusler almost hitting the barrier once again. That would be very much going to be a race-ending damage if they did do that. You can see how hard Kusler's pushing here, attempting to keep up with Tolnen. Barbed wire. Kusler still 1.2 seconds behind as the Bugatti of Megius coming through. Down the hill. Kusler is closing. Pushing hard almost again. Running wide into the barrier there. Down to 40 kilometers an hour and then back on the power to climb the hill. Drivers definitely seem to be struggling with traction there as the car doesn't quite know what to do with that incline. Kusler still 0.8, closing now, 0.7, 0.6. Does Kusler have the opportunity now for a run on Tolnen as they come up to the Metzeler sign? Kusler now slowing slightly, 0.6, 0.7. Keeping me on the edge of my seat here as Kusler hangs in here under the Bosch sign. It's 0.6 of a second over the start-finish line grids, and Kusler is still holding on, but just slightly falling back to 1 second now. down through the cobblestone. The track temperature is now 27 degrees, and that will be helping, but it's still 95%, so it hasn't actually improved from a grip point of view according to the data here. But considering it started at 10 degrees track temperature, we're now to 27, which is definitely a marked improvement. Kusa now 0.5 of a second behind, so pushing hard now and getting closer. Tolnen, we definitely aware of the pressure, although I don't believe these cars have any particularly useful wing mirrors. Tolnen opening a gap again of just about 1.7 seconds. Looks like Hayley Smith up ahead. No, I stand corrected, it's Kai Severston. Tolnen gets past Kai Severston. But Kustler is still in proximity. 2.4 seconds now though, so a bit of breathing space for Tolnen. The timing is slightly off now for those drivers there, but let's go back to Kustler, who's got Heitinen only 0.4 of a second behind now, as Heitinen manages to round Kai Severston and is now putting the pressure on Kustler, and by pressure I mean overtaking. That means that Heitinen now is going to be next in line to challenge Tolnen. No sign of a pit stop yet for our race leader Marcus Pelton or Nurmi or Uatilla. That would certainly change the running order. So Kai, 5.3 seconds off their lap time now, struggling a little bit it seems. So let's go to Tolnen now, who is running in 4th place, but soon to be challenged by the likes of Heitinen, who's now about a 1 second behind, 0.9, so just starting to close that gap. Both drivers in a very similar colour scheme, of course in the same car, the 1925 Delage. Here comes Heitinen with a 0.3 second gap, definitely approaching very quickly, and I think Tolnen will struggle to maintain position given the speed at which Heitinen is gaining. Although that being said, Heitinen is now 0.7 of a second behind. Let's see whether Tolnen can get the power down here sufficiently quickly in the hill. Oh, look at that. Kustler struggling with wheel spin on the climb up the hill here. That's definitely not helped them. Heitinen now side by side and through. I think they managed to get a bit of a quicker incline up the hill there, and that's put Tolnen already 0.7 of a second behind Heitinen, so massive speed differential between those two as they come under the Metzler-Reifen sign. And that puts Heitinen up to P4. Of course, Heitinen has already had a pit stop. So when Peltonen, Nurmi or Uatilla come in, of which they haven't done yet. It may have an impact quite substantially on Heitinen's race here. He stands to gain 3 positions and put himself on the top of the podium if the other drivers need to pit soon, and Heitinen's got his pit stop out of the way earlier on. That of course does assume that Heitinen didn't have to pit for any other reason other than strategic reasons. But with 13.4 laps completed, Marcus Pelton is on lap 14. Logic suggests that he may be getting low on fuel. Might need to think about cooling the engine down or tyres, we'll have to see. Here comes Peltonen. Taylor Fredge in the pits. Nurmi's been a pretty consistent 9 to 10 seconds behind Peltonen for the last 14 laps. And Nurmi's got quite a big gulf to cover before they can get to Nurmi. 46 seconds of delta there. Let's see if Peltonen's thinking about a pit stop anytime soon. Got a little bit more of track to go. 27 degrees still. Track is still 95% though. Here comes the Bosch sign. And I don't think Peltonen's slowing down whatsoever, so no pit stop for Peltonen. But Nurmi isn't either, and Uatilla is about 47 seconds behind them. Will they be thinking about an undercut, potentially? A half an hour race time remaining, I think. Everyone getting a bit spread out now. Tolnen 5 seconds ahead of Kusler. Heitinen 12 ahead of Tolnen though, so incredible pace differential there. Under the Bosch sign, no slowing down from Uatilla, so definitely no pit stop for them. Coasting through the first corner there. Down through the town on the twisty, cold cobbles. Uatilla continues. Naomi has got a little bit closer now to Marcus Peltonen. 8 seconds. Previously that was around 10. And they're up on their best lap time. 5:35.769 was their last lap time and best lap time. Maybe starting to enjoy a slightly lighter vehicle with less fuel on board as they'd burnt through most of that. Peltonen 5:36.797. So yeah, last lap for Nurmi was quicker. Item though on a 5:34.8 for their best and a 5:35.9 on the last lap, so still quicker than the race leaders here. Peltonen's just overtaken F. Megirsa in the 1923 Bugatti. Getting the most recent generation of car seems to be a key strategy, which involves firstly probably winning races as much as possible, but also not crashing, not picking up those credit bills for repairs and so on. Nurmi now 7.6 seconds behind, so maybe potentially closing a little bit quicker. Curious to see if Marcus Peltonen is going to do the whole race distance on 0 stops, or whether he's going to be coming in for a pit stop in the last 5 laps or so. And if they do, that might open up the door here for Heitinen, who's already had their pit stop, as I mentioned earlier on. There's Nurmi, now visible in the same shot together. Nurmi's definitely closing now, so will Peltonen be having to pit stop this lap, because they seem to be losing time now. Of course, they've done the same distance as Nurmi has, so maybe they'll both be coming in at the same time. Should be seeing the Bosch sign coming up soon. I don't think Peltonen is pitting, ladies and gentlemen, as he goes flying past. Will Nurmi? Nope. Perhaps Uatilla, though, will have different ideas. They're 6 seconds off their best lap time now. Currently running 3rd place still. Uatilla under the Bosch sign. No sign of slowing down. They're going to go round it once again. Like Darling is in the pits for the time being. Back on with Peltonen now. Lap 16. Actually improving on their best lap time right now, so that fuel must be getting low. And Peltonen climbing the hill now. No change to track temperature or ambient temperature. Wind remaining stable at 2 kilometers an hour. And Marcus Peltonen actually almost 1 second to half a second improvement. Losing a bit of time on the climb up the hill at the moment. Looks like Nurmi getting a little bit distracted there, almost going off the side of the track. And Peltonen slowly losing out a little bit of the advantage they've been building up this lap now. 0.2 of a second now. Previously that was around 0.8. Everyone else remaining pretty stable and spread out as the later stage of the race kicks in. Last few laps to go. Looks like Marcus Peltonen might be on track here. But then again, if they do have to pit, might mean that Heitinen takes a very last minute switcheroo up to the top 3 positions. 0.6 of an improvement for Peltonen now. I'm putting that down to fuel rather than anything else. Nurmi remains about 9 seconds behind. I think these two are running in a team as well, so pretty evenly matched teammates. Here an engine struggling to climb a hill. Let's see who it is when we turn this corner. Ah, that looks like Pereira. Do we see Peltonen in the background appear very shortly? Yes, we do. There's Nurmi. Looks like Drick is starting to close in on Henry. 0.8 of a second between those two. I'll keep an eye on those. Let's jump back to Henry now. So Drick now coming up with a burst of speed. 0.3 of a second behind. Can they carry this momentum through? 0.2, 0.1. They're going through. Ooh, look at that. Number 12. Just on the inside line there. Good thing that Drick wasn't trying to take the inside line. And Drick is now through and clear. Peltonen hasn't pitted. Neither has Nurmi. I think they're going to try and do this on 0 stops. It would be odd if they had to pit at this stage. Although I'm not entirely sure how far you can go on a tank of fuel in one of these cars, but I'd be surprised if it was a whole 2 hours. I'm kind of expecting Peltonen, Nurmi and Uatila to have to pit before the end of this race, but I am completely willing to be proved wrong by these guys. Drick and Henry switching places once more. Here comes Henry. Haley Smith now closing in on El Renard. Looks like Lazaro and Kwiatkowski though going toe to toe, and Lazaro overtaking Kwiatkowski and doing so with quite a burst of speed. Look, they've opened up a 1.5 second gap already. Track has still remained at 95%. Like Kwiatkowski coming back at Lazaro. It looks like Lazaro has named their car Lazaro's Arrow. Gotta say, I do very much enjoy the paint scheme they've applied. It's very tasteful. Oh, Lazarus Arrow. Back to our race leader, Marcus Peltonen. 8 seconds still clear of Nurmi. Lazaro still bound down in P18, but clear 5 seconds of Kwiatkowski now. Marcus Peltonen about 1.4 seconds off their best pace now though, so maybe my theory of them needing a pit stop at some point is beginning to come true, but I'm pretty sure when we see these guys come under the Bosch sign, which precedes the start-finish straight, I'm not going to see any evidence of slowing down and preparing for pit stop. Here's the Bosch sign. I don't think this is a pit entry strategy. That's definitely not. So I'm pretty sure Marcus Peltonen isn't going to be pitting now. It would seem like a bit of a weird tactic to leave it this late in the race. So strategy seems to be take it to the end of the race if they possibly can. They've had no significant contact, so hasn't necessitated the need for a pit stop for any other reason. And just seems too late in the game now to plan a pit stop. Peltonen now dealing with a bit of traffic here. There's the Vorsan driven by Trompke, who diligently gets out the way to allow Pelton to get through. Let's take a look here at Haley Smith, who's now just about to lose position here to El Renard. Ooh, Haley there, almost clipping a wall. At such a late stage of the race would be an absolute disaster. Nurmi is closed in on Peltonen by a good margin. 6 seconds gap now. Previously that was around 10. 8 more latterly, but definitely down to 6 now. Meanwhile, Heitinen holding rock steady in P4. Ah, look, there's a car turned around. That's not Korkowski. Not sure who that was actually. That eluded me slightly there. Back to Marcus Peltonen. Ah, so Heitinen's up to 3rd place. That must mean Uatilla is stopped for some reason. This could be heating issues. They were foreseen in the driver briefing. Ah, Uatilla's returned to the pits. That could be an indicative of a crash then. Returning to the pits of that in that nature does mean nil points. So I think Uatilla is out of the race, unfortunately. So close to the end as well. Very unfortunate. So that opens the door to Heitinen for a P3. Tolnin in a good spot here, seemingly on track for a P4. And Kusler will be grabbing a P5 by the looks of it. They're very unfortunate for Uatilla, such a strong race and on track for a 3rd spot, but denied at the last few moments. Here we are though with Peltonen, who thankfully has not succumbed to such a fate. And they are rapidly approaching the end of this lap. So yes, Peltonen definitely not going to be pitting. But Nurmi is closing in though, 5.6 seconds. Last 2 laps for Peltonen now. A lot of pressure not to make a mistake. They've got a pretty big safety net though, 3 minutes between themselves and Heitinen. But the only one that Pelton has to really worry about is Nurmi. And Nurmi is closing. Kai Severson, Paul van Rosen. Kai Severson on track to finish a race, which I think they've very unfortunately not been able to do thus far in the season. So hopefully they manage to do so. At the moment though, Uttila may technically finish this race in a higher position than some of the other drivers, but I think because they returned to the pits, that does mean that they don't get any points, unfortunately. Marcus Peltonen, lap 19, manages to shave off 1.4 seconds from their lap time, somehow. You would have thought fatigue would be setting in by this point, but apparently not. Seems to be very much in tune with their vehicle and driving the absolute pants off of it, even at this stage of the race. There's Nurmi, only 5 seconds behind now. Interesting that Pelton doesn't seem to have had any heating issues as well. Other drivers seemingly haven't had that much of an impact either, but we've definitely seen some cars pull over at some point or other to cool the car down. But Pelton seems to be driving hell for leather nonetheless. So Marcus Pelton about halfway through this lap. Just about to start the last lap soon. Heitinen now up to third place officially, at 2.2 minutes behind Nurmi. Just goes to show how quick Nurmi and Pelton have been and remain in the season. Penultimate time up this hill for Pelton now. Nurmi in hot pursuit, 5 seconds behind. Lippi about to overtake Uttila now. So, last lap for Peltonen. Nurmi's now 4 seconds behind, so will we see a last lap showdown between Peltonen and Nurmi, teammates, in their 2025 Delages? Final lap here. It's a real shame to see Attila dropping down following their accident. Must have been absolutely game-ending damage they received. Nurmi now closing into 3 seconds. It'll be interesting to see if they can pip Peltonen to the post, as it were. Sub 3 seconds for Nurmi now, as they push hard to try and catch up with Peltonen on their last lap here. Still 3 seconds between the two. I wonder if these two will be forming up for a formation lap before the end of the race, or whether Nurmi has just been saving this burst of speed for the end of the race. 2.8 seconds. Still pushing hard now. There's F. McGears. Bit of a honk of the horn as they go past under the BP sign. Here comes Nurmi. Letting them know they're coming through. That's slowed them down a little bit though, because Peltonen is now 35 seconds, or 3.5 seconds, sorry, ahead. Looks like Peltonen might be safe for this last lap. 3.5 second gap to Nurmi, but only 0.3 of a circuit to go. And Drick has moved up to P8 now, officially. Both Nurmi and Peltonen making good headway. Henry up to P9 now, and looks like El Renaud is going to be moving up to P10 shortly. Kwiatkowski and Lafrege, they battling out on the last lap here. But under the Metzler-Reifen sign goes our race leader, Marcus Peltonen. And under the Bosch sign for the last time comes Marcus Peltonen. A zero-stop strategy that seems to have paid dividends, and Marcus Peltonen wins the race here, followed closely by their teammate Nurmi. And now it is down to Heitinen to bring home third place. So fantastic demonstration of skill today from Marcus Peltonen and Nurmi, both drivers dominating the running here at the fifth round, sorry. A whole minute to go before Heitinen even finishes this race. Just shows how far ahead Peltonen and Nurmi had got. Although pretty impressive for Heitinen to be finishing this race in third place, all going well, given that they had a pit stop. And there's Kai Siversen, still on track to finish this race. The first race I think they're going to have finished so far. Although I stand corrected, Kai Siversen has 25 points in the overall championship, so they must have finished with points at some point. Here comes Heitinen. Moments away now from finishing the race. Billy Miller's taken 7th place, Paul Rosen taking 12th, McGear's taking 22nd. And here comes Heitinen for a 3rd spot. Well done. And here comes Tolnen. Oh, we've got a little bit of last lap action here. Korkowski and Lefredge having a little bit of a battle here, it seems, momentarily. So, Tolnen, a minute away from finishing the race. On track for a P4 finish. And here we go, Tolnen finishing the race in P4. Nothing can stop them now. Kusler taking 5th place momentarily. The battle between Kusler and Tolnen ending with a separation of around 35 seconds. Borkowski has finished the race. There's Lafrege. And Kusler crossing the line to take 5th place. That just leaves Lippi in P6. Or 32 seconds behind Kusler. Henry finishing in 9th. El Renard in 10th. So just Haley Smith in 11th place and Lippi in 6th place to come over the line. Under the Bosch sign one more time for Lippi. And there we have it. Lippi finishes in 6th place. So I see, Heitonen, you've joined me in the commentary stream box here. How are things?
Yes, hello there. I was ushered to come in here.
Hopefully not against your will.
Yeah, but it's okay. Yeah, it was actually a really fun race, but yeah, with the random puncture that I got, I think 3rd was pretty much the best I could get. But I don't think my performance was great either. I was a bit too conservative there.
So was that the reason for your pit stop? You had a puncture earlier on.
Yep, yeah, it was just a random puncture, and then I hit a wall, had to repair stuff and so on. So it was pretty much all over at that point. Just hoping for something to happen on the front too, but that never happened.
Well, pretty impressive comeback considering, and I think you managed to pick up the fastest lap of the race. So your point about being conservative may need to review, because you managed a 5:34.149, which is 7/10 quicker than even Nurmi.
Was it? I thought Eetu did faster in the end, but yeah, I'm not sure. This was actually still there. It would have been possible to do much faster lap, but then you would have to be slower on the next lap, cooling off the engine again.
Yeah. So tell me about engine heating. How did you manage the car? Was it generally okay, or did you have to be quite careful with the engine?
I had to be careful. I was actually using the longest gearing, even though it wasn't the best otherwise, but it was maybe like a little bit easier to do short shifting with that one. Or in a couple of places going uphill, I could use a gear 1 step lower, which was then okay. But yeah, basically the same strategy as with conserving fuel with modern cars, just lifting off and coasting downhills and so on. For example, on the first sector, on the 2 downhills right at the beginning towards the town, you could get the engine temperatures down by 5 degrees or so just by using clutch and coasting off and losing about a second there, stuff like that.
Oh wow, okay, that sounds so interesting. And fuel-wise, how did you do? Did you manage to get any fuel in during your pit stop, or how much fuel do you think the cars are finishing with if they did a 0 stop?
There was no reason to pit for fuel at all at this point. There's like 150-liter fuel tank, and this took something like 135 would have been like flat out, but then you had to conserve the engine, so I actually had 1 extra lap in the end in the fuel left, so it would have been like 128 or something would have been enough actually.
Okay, so engine management was pretty much the only concern.
Exactly, yeah, and rear tires, I guess. But I mean, it was fine, except it was just a random puncture that took it out this time.
Yeah, unfortunate. And tell me about the cobblestones at the beginning in the downhill section of the town. That looks like it's absolutely a nightmare at the beginning of the race. How much traction do you have?
It is, yeah, no, almost none at all. And the problem is, especially on the next laps, the brakes tend to be totally toasted there, so it feels like you have no brakes at the end of the braking zone. So you just have to go in really slowly, very early, use the engine braking, and try to keep the rear ends on the limit. I actually had brake bias almost all the way on the back because of that downhill, and then tried to be careful elsewhere.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, yeah. Congratulations on your 3rd place, and quite a great comeback considering the puncture that you had earlier on. I see we're also joined by Tolnin and Kusler. So Tolnin, Kusler, how are things? I see you two had quite an interesting battle for some time.
Well, yeah, battle, but it was some racing. Yeah. But we have a
only race that I had in the whole 20 laps.
Yeah, same for me. It was pretty lonely race after all.
Yeah, it's quite a long lap, isn't it? 6.5 or so minutes. So yeah, everything got a bit spaced out towards the end, but there were some good battles at some points in the race. How did you guys manage your engine temperatures? Was everything okay from your point of view?
Very
Well,
poorly.
I had no real issue with that, but my issues was just to keep on track. I hit the fence few times and lost my radiator a bit.
Oh no.
So, but still it wasn't just in limits. But the engine was taking a bit damage. It was like having a 70% of its power at the end anymore. So I just
Okay. And but it's still
barely finished.
still impressive to bring home a P4 and a P5. So that was it's really good. Do we know what happened to you, Attila?
Yeah, if I heard it correctly, he just hit something and toast his engine completely. So it was just
I believe
that.
it was a puncture at first in the
Ah,
downhill or somewhere.
oh yeah. Then he lost the control or something.
Yeah, and then the
Yeah.
engine go up.
Oh, what a shame. I think that was on lap 18 as well. So close to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, really bad luck. Especially remembering the Monza race
Oh
where he
yes.
made also a mistake in the end. So, but well, such is racing sometimes.
Indeed. Well, I was glad to see Kai Sivertsen finish the race, though.
Finally.
Yeah, exactly. After so many, close calls. But yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting race today. We didn't see any rain, thankfully, so I guess that would have made things even more interesting with the downhill section on the cobblestones if you guys had to contend with a bit of rain. So I guess you're all quite glad to have had a dry outing today. Tell me about the new Delage though. So it seems like quite an improvement on the previous generation.
Well, yeah, they got the supercharger and with it the 70 more horsepower, so it was like completely different car. And fortunately, it was a bit more manageable in dirt, but in tarmac it would have been really hard to handle, at least in my opinion. It's so powerful and still has so bad suspension and all. So it's a handful in tarmac.
Yeah, but I found it very delightful actually now that I drive my race pace, which was slow, but it was nice. It was nice, very nice car to drive at low speeds.
And did I read
Yeah,
correctly? Did I read correctly that you're running on studded tyres for the gravel? But how does that work on the cobblestones?
Yeah, well, it was slippery like hell. Like I took it really carefully.
Probably a wise move.
Yeah, and even when you are driving it very carefully, one mistake and you're in the wall.
Yeah.
It was living hell in there.
And then you have 150 litres of things to worry about after you've hit something. But in true classic 1920s fashion, I see that they took safety very seriously and left the barbed wire fences, the trees, and the low solid fences in place just in case things weren't dangerous enough.
Yeah, of course. We're still missing the large rocks and everything that they had back then, but I think this is dangerous enough like this.
Exactly. I think my favourite piece of information from this era was that they firmly believed it was safer to not have a seatbelt because being thrown clear of your vehicle was probably safer than being strapped into it.
Yeah, it was a death trap if you crash with it.
I can
And
imagine.
it could of course like explode and burn really badly, and you're stuck in there. So better just jump out and hope for the best.
What chance of staying alive, man?
Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for coming in for an interview. Where are we off to next, Tolnan?
We are in in Belgium, Spa-Francorchmps.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Well, yeah, I've driven the original, the vintage version of that in, I think, Project Cars 2, and I seem to remember that the Eau Rouge was quite a death-defying corner at that point in time. So I'm looking forward to that already.
Yeah, me too. It's one of my favorite tracks and really fun to drive with these cars, but extremely dangerous, of course. But we'll see how it goes.
Was it that on tarmac already, or?
No, it's on dirt also. So
It's also on dirt. Okay.
yeah.
Just in case, Kusler, you thought things were going to get mostly any more sensible, it's definitely still gravel.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, guys. Well, thank you very much. I shall leave you all to the rest of your Sunday evenings, and I look forward to catching up with you guys next time at the next race.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Okay, guys, thank you very much for being part of the stream today. Hope you've enjoyed that as much as I have, and I'll catch you next month for the next round, which will be round 6 at Spa on dirt. So tune in next time, and have a good week in advance.